It's officially time for the maiden voyage of the Talkin podcast. How's it going, everyone? Thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to check out our brand new show. I'm Rob, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to my two co-hosts all the way from New York City, Mr. Brad Miller.
Hello, hello.
And if you notice a family resemblance, that's because there is one. All the way from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, my sister, Kelly Furnish.
What's up, listeners?
Before we get going here, guys, I thought it would be cool to, give everybody sort of a background on why our new show is just sort of fallen out of the sky, and why we decided to do this. So I guess, correct me if I'm wrong here, team, but for what seems like forever now, the three of us have been reviewing, theorizing, and just generally geeking out over the biggest blockbuster movies and TV shows. And after all this time, the three of us got together and we thought, maybe someone out there would actually want to listen to this. And thus the Talkin podcast was born.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I mean, if I think about the three of us and our sort of journey on this, I mean, movies, TV shows, Rob mentions that we're siblings. So this goes back to, days in diapers. But I think for this trio, I think of the Dark Knight trilogy as sort of the inception, if you will, of our geekdom. Yeah. So I sort of think of that as the inception of this team. And then, when I reflect on the last 17, 18 months being locked inside, it's like we've been able to revisit some of the older movies that, made us fall in love with, this medium. And then we've also had all this time to sort of look forward to, get excited for, yearn for the movies that are coming. And so we thought, let's just talk about it in a more formal way. Let's make this thing official. And yeah, maybe there's a handful of people who care, and that would be awesome.
Fun doing it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Have some fun doing it.
Absolutely. No, I mean, we've been doing this for as long as I can remember now. I think that the Dark Knight trilogy is probably where it got the most passionate, I think, as far as like we started to really kind of go like, okay, we are going to these movies, midnight screenings. We are going to have a discussion afterward, whether it be in the parking lot or at a restaurant or whatever. But I mean, it's just obvious from the time that, me and Rob became friends in high school, and then in turn, obviously befriended Kelly, being your sister. And we we love movies, and we love all that nerdy stuff. And I've always, so anybody that would give me an ear when I'd go ranting and raving about a particular film or show or whatever, I would take it and this was the perfect idea. And I jumped on it. Rob said, let's do a podcast. And I was like, I was waiting.
Well, and
waiting in the wings.
Speaking of opportunistic timing, I can't think of a better topic for our first episode than to discuss the latest from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We've all seen the movie. I hope everyone if you haven't seen the movie, I would strongly recommend turning this off. Go and watch the movie and then come back. This is going to be a totally spoiler-filled discussion. So obviously, this is the first sort of, like, we had Black Widow, but that was kind of weird and muddled and came out on the Premier Access on Disney+. This one is the 25th entry into the MCU, directed by Destin Cretton, and it is getting rave reviews, Rotten Tomatoes score of 92%, smashed the pandemic box office record over Labor Day with 90 million, taking in 90 million, that is. So I just kind of want to, before we get into like specifics, I kind of want to open it up to the two of you and be like, what did you think of the movie? Just general thoughts. Kelly, we'll start with you. Like, let her rip. Tell us what you thought.
Well, first of all, I'll say it felt really good to go back to the movies. So this is the first movie that I've gone and seen in the theater since the beginning of this whole damn thing. We went to the VIP experience here in northern Toronto. So, it felt good. We had our big comfy seats, my giant popcorn. I also ordered a really mediocre pizza. which honestly, no, was great. Like,
Yeah, I feel like
But
it's
there's a
Yeah.
flavor. But there's a theater flavor that
Yeah.
you can't get
Yeah.
outside of it. Yeah.
pizza
Yeah,
at the movie
taste-
theater is definitely a roll of the dice.
yeah,
Mhm.
no, lesson learned there. So yeah, wonderful to be back at the movies. And this was a good entry to start that journey back on. As far as my sort of general reactions, I thought this was a really strong entry into the MCU. I think it's an origin story which we're obviously familiar with in this universe, and I think as far as comparing it against its predecessors, it's a strong one. The cast in particular stands out for me as what makes this film fantastic. I would think we'll dive a little bit more into the discussion of the individual characters later, but I'll just put a plug out there that Tony Leung, who plays the father figure in this film, is just astounding, and the standout of the movie for me. The movie's third act, which we'll talk about, loses me a little bit. That's where I started to sort of go, maybe looking at my watch a little, maybe feeling a little shifty in my seat. So we'll get into why that was, but I'd say solid entry into the MCU, had its pros, had its cons. Would recommend folks go head out to the theater to see it.
Brad, your general thoughts on Shang-Chi?
Oh my God, I loved it. I mean, exactly to Kelly's point, I've been waiting to go to the theater, and I'm one of those guys who I've never particularly cared about if Buddy's rustling his popcorn bowl beside me or like some. I don't really care. I love going to the theater. I absolutely love it. When I saw this, I had to find a really cool theater in Brooklyn. I'm here in Brooklyn, and it was Cobble Hill Theater, shout out, like really cool old theater. It was just a really great experience. Everybody was in a fantastic mood. Oh my God. I'm an emotional person as it is, but I was getting like choked up. I was like, oh my God, I knew I missed it, but I feel like Shang-Chi, just from that aspect alone, will always have like a bit of a soft spot for me now, because I was like, I knew I was missing it, but I was missing it even more than I thought. But all that being said, oh my God, I loved it. I thought it was so great. I thought exactly too, Kelly. Like, yeah, the characters. Oh my God, the acting I thought was brilliant. I thought right away, I think we were maybe like 15, 20 minutes in, and we get to meet the lead. Shout out Mississauga. What's up, lead? So great. Simu Liu killed it. And the relationship that he had with Aquafina, I honestly kept thinking it reminded me of Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve. There was something there.
Wow. What a comparison.
I felt it. I think it was probably in the initial couple like scenes where, they start, like you just see the general relationship, but even down to Aquafina's got like a bit of a rasp in her voice that Margot Kidder was always famous for having. And seemingly Liu has the most charm, simple charm. Like I was literally like, this dude is killing it.
Yeah,
this dude is killing it.
Super likable guy.
And there was just this kind of like raw charisma between the two of them that I was just like, you can't fake that. That's something that like casting, like bravo. And then like just go down the list. I bought it. I was in it the whole time. The third act was like overwhelming, but I was like, what? Oh my God. Like I wasn't expecting this at all, but
there's a dragon. There's another dragon.
Yeah, like I was like, this is unbelievable. But the visuals from top to bottom, the visuals were there the whole time. I thought it was brilliant. And I honestly, as much as I'm a sucker for like all the MCU movies, it was great to see something so different. I thought this was such a different avenue and such a different way of storytelling that we've seen already in maybe other MCU movies. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I'm with the two of you. I absolutely love the film. Fell apart for me in the third act a little bit as well, simply because one of the things I loved the most about this film was the dynamic between Shang-Chi and his father. And I thought that when we got to that third act, I was really looking forward to that showdown. They spent all movie building to that showdown. And you saw like the clip from the trailer of him walking towards his dad being like, is this what you wanted? Like, I remember, and then the epic thing where like they separate the 10 rings and like they're staring at each other, like incredible.
Yeah.
And then I just thought like they didn't let that go long enough. It turned into Dragon versus Dragon, but like Kelly said, we'll get into that. We'll get into that a little later. One thing I wanted to touch on, and one thing that the listeners of this show will learn about me, is I am very particular when it comes to humor and levity. I think that it is such a fine line. And I think you have to really walk that line from being like good and stupid. And I thought Awkwafina killed it in this movie. She was hysterical. She was perfect. Not once did I like go into a scene and think, why are you here? Which a lot of times in these movies, Lois Lane in certain Superman movies, do I look and go like, why are you here? Like, I thought she was absolutely outstanding and stole the movie for me. I thought she was excellent, just excellent.
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, I'll qualify your comment there, Rob. I think you're talking about modern Superman movies, not the lovely Margot Kidder that Brad mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Let's
be clear.
Yeah, let's be clear there. I think the thing that was really refreshing for me with her character was that it really felt, I think maybe near the end they were trying to spin it a little bit. It really felt like a platonic friendship between the two of them,
very much.
which allowed her to be a more, I don't know, fully realized character. She didn't just exist. Not a love interest, she didn't just exist to, entice him, have him desire her, whatever you want to say, but
give him a smooch at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. It was really about, and these people in real life. I think that's what's so great about it. These two characters in real life, these two like platonic male female best friends who can just go hang out, go to karaoke together, do these things. So I think part of the reason why she was such a standout as well was that they just felt like real people hanging out. And to your point, her humor really walked that right line of not being too silly and not sort of having these kind of comedic moments that almost like break the vibe of a scene or whatever. There's another character in the movie who, Rob, I think you're going to talk about a little later, that to me did cross that line a little bit on the humor. Interesting character.
No. Oh, I loved him. I still I like that you're already bringing it up, and like we can move on if we want, but I think that's a good segue into Ben Kingsley.
Before we go there, I just want to talk about like a character who is also a main stay in this movie that none of us touched on, which is his sister Zhai Ling. I thought she was great as well. I thought she added. I wasn't anticipating that going into the movie. The sibling rivalry dynamic. I thought the fact that she was running like the fight club in the building was also really cool. Like that had Wong against Abomination.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Every Marvel fan geeked out over that.
Yeah. Well, we geeked out, but also the little like once Wong opens the portal and you kind of see like there's like a jail in there or something, like what's going on? Like I thought that was such a great little Easter egg. I, again, being in the theater, like I felt like I saw everybody do this when he opened the portal. Like everybody was trying to see like where they were going. And because oh my God, I thought that was such a great little tease. I love that relationship.
100% agree. And I just want to do a quick little shout out. I wasn't going to get away. I wasn't going to finish this podcast without shouting out. Character didn't have one line in the entire movie, but I thought the Death Dealer looked badass. That fight scene in the building between the Death Dealer and Shang-Chi. Badass.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Brad, you wanted to talk about it. Let's talk about Ben Kingsley, Sir Ben Kingsley, aka Trevor Slattery, aka the fake Mandarin, and his friend Morris.
let me just well, first of all, I actually I don't know, like, okay, I honestly I haven't heard a lot of consensus on what everybody's thinking. I actually am in a camp where I think that there's some redemption here. I really do, because we all know, Sir Ben Kingsley knows that there was some like hard feelings about what went down in Iron Man 3. No, like, you're talking about one of the best super villains of the entire MCU, bar none. And it was kind of like a weird twist that didn't really need to happen. I absolutely I did not see that coming at all, that they were going to bring him back. Not at all. And
well, they did kind of tease it earlier when Wu said he copied who I was and named himself after a chicken dish.
Right. No, yes, that for sure. But like, I actually still, I do remember that, but I was still just kind of like, they're not going to do it. They're not going to bring him back. And then they did. And but like that, even though that twist really bothered everybody, you can't, if you just take in that character for what it is, I think it's hysterical.
I think his name is Trevor.
Yeah. Like, it's just like
me every time.
But like, his acting is so, like, I believe that he believes that he's just like this, like that whole twist, or like that whole thought process of like why he wanted to be an actor.
I knew you would love that. I've been waiting to ask him at the Planet of the Apes line.
I was dying, man. I was dying. I thought it was hilarious. Like, and I know that there's times where like some of that, like, again, Disney and the MCU, like, they love doing it, and I'm a sucker for it as well. But like, there are times where you're kind of like I don't know if that was the right place for that. But like, his character was just so funny, and I could, and I think the general audience could just digest that character better this time, because the twist was already happened, and if you just take in his character for what it is, I thought it was great. I really liked it, and his little buddy with no face. But they kept what did
Morris? How many?
But like a chicken? What was it? A chicken pig? A chicken
How
pig
many
or something?
stuffed Morrises are gonna fly out of the Disney Star?
Take my wallet.
So
my wallet.
Well, I think in general, whenever there's sort of a retcon in any of these movies, it can be a little clunky. So again, shout out to my fave character. He does a terrific job early in the movie, kind of walking through what I think is somewhat awkward dialogue of being like, well, there was this guy and he was pretending to be me, but he's not. And I think a lesser actor would have fumbled that hard. It's awkward. It's awkward to retcon something as kind of as big as that and as controversial.
Gravitas that Tony Leung brought to that role, it just oozed off him.
Yeah, one of the best villains the MCU's ever made.
Yeah, he's
on screen,
great.
Like, unbelievable.
Yeah, and then so that kind of was early in the movie, and I'm thinking, okay, that was, they managed through that. And then, you know what, I wasn't too put off by them discovering him in the prison cell, because there's the short that folks can go watch on Disney Plus, the All Hail the King, that sort of sets that up, that he's been captured by the Mandarin, and the Mandarin wants to, have words with him. So that all made sense to me. I think where I was like, what, was when they're like, and let's bring them along on this journey. We're going to ride in the car with them. And then you sort of had this, like, these two characters, Awkwafina and Trevor Slattery, who are both serving as the comic relief. And then in that sense, I was sort of like, do we need both of them here? Like, and then, and then we're in the midst of the battle, and you've got the scene where he's pretending to be dead and all that kind of stuff. And it just felt a little like we're doubling down on the humor at a point in which, what Rob said, it's like at a point in which actually emotions should be running high in terms of,
it was going down.
Yeah. So, I didn't mind the guy being in the movie. I should have been tipped off that he was at the premiere. Like, hello. So like that's your first clue that he was going to be in the movie.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, no, so did I. But yeah, like I sort of thought it was bizarre. I guess because he was acting as Morris's translator, that they needed to bring him in the car. But I sort of had enough of the Mandarin by the end of not the Mandarin, sorry, Trevor Slattery by the end of the movie. I'm like, all right, that's enough. That's enough of you.
I want to dive deeper I want to dive deeper into the third act because we all kind of highlighted that. But before we do that, none of us have mentioned Michelle Yeoh.
Oh yeah.
What
She was
I thought
great.
she was outstanding. She's a legend, and you cast her in that role. I didn't see, because I'll be the first to admit, like, Shang-Chi is not an origin story that I'm all that familiar with.
Mhm.
And I thought that she was going to be his mom. I thought that they were going to go on the other side of the magical gateway there and find his mom, but it wasn't. It turned out to be their aunt, which I
Mhm.
thought was kind of an interesting dynamic, and I thought it was cool. Oh, he got his like cool red suit and stuff, and like that was pretty badass. And
she was
I
kind
thought
of
she
the
was
voice.
outstanding. Yeah.
Yeah. She had kind of taken over the helm for their mom, while still kind of like she was kind of the stability on that side once they the battle was going on, and kind of teaching Shang-Chi like what had to happen, and like you weren't going to win unless he kind of embraced that style of fighting and everything else. And I'm like, I mean, also let's just talk about the fighting really quick, because that was
Yeah.
outstanding.
everybody's talking about the bus scene, and for good reason. It's phenomenal. But the fight on the scaffolding, that was what really grabbed me personally. I thought it was unbelievable. I think I mean, I can't. From what I've heard, the stunt coordinating and everything that went on with this was people who were even in Bruce Lee's crew, and like the guy that actually did the Matrix and everything else. And I was just, again, as soon as when you know it in hindsight, it's kind of like, well, of course, like, look how brilliant this was. And a lot of those actors did a lot of their own stunt work and everything else. And I thought it was phenomenal.
That's what I was going to say, is like, you could just tell, just Simu Liu did a lot of that himself. I mean, this guy's living his best life right now. He's, he's throwing the opening pitch and doing backflips. So
that was awesome.
Jacked.
No, guy's just having the time of his life. But like, you see that athleticism just in his day to day. So you're not surprised that he's able to pull some of this stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was watching, they did like a little bit of a 13-minute doc on sort of the background of making this movie. And like all of these actors were really in the mix. That's why you hire actors like Michelle Yeoh, so that they can make this stuff look real.
Mm-hmm.
So that we don't have to rely on CGI, which is where we somewhat end up in the third act.
It's true though. I get it.
We'll get into the third act right now, but I want to touch on what Brad just said really quickly. I thought that this was the best fighting choreography in all of the MCU, better than Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I find that can get a bit camera cutty at times, whereas this, like I mentioned, the fight earlier against the Death Dealer, like that is just outstanding. When he catches the knife and then like looks at, oh my god, outstanding. All right, let's talk about the third act. Polarizing thus far, all three of us have mentioned it. I mentioned earlier why it kind of fell apart for me. I was looking for kind of a bigger, more epic fight between Shang-Chi and his father. Kelly, you have a very strong feeling about it, so you go first, and then we'll throw to Brad.
Yeah, I mean, you've spent the movie doing a phenomenal job with these phenomenal actors, building up this complex family dynamic, right? You've got the familial dynamic of parent and child, and all the complexities that go into that. And then we get to the end, and to your point, Rob, we could have had a really emotional fight scene, a really well choreographed fight scene, and it just felt like it relied really heavily on CGI bracelet throwing, and then we get into a little bit of soulless, faceless monsters, which folks will get to know as we go through different MCU iterations and other movies of similar style. That's where movies lose me a little bit. Like when I go back and even watch Infinity War, right, one of the best movies in the MCU, if not the best movie in the MCU, the second the space dogs come out of the spaceship, that's probably when I'm most likely to fast forward, if anything. So I wanted it to be a quieter but more emotional ending, and instead we got epic, but I don't know, I wasn't invested in this, in the flying dragon and the soul-sucking monster. That wasn't the plot that we built up over the last hour and a half. And then the other part that I thought, and it looked, you know, and we'll talk about post credits eventually, but the sister figure in the movie, like, I thought she didn't get her due to, like, to have it out with dad too. Like,
but do you not think they're setting up a sequel with that? Like,
100%.
Like they're 100% setting up like Shang-Chi 2, and she'll be a massive part of that, and that might be a sticking point for her, where it's like, you killed our father.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But yeah, as they were riding around on the CGI dragon, my thought was, I felt that she had earned it as much as Shang-Chi did. And so I wanted to see more. I wanted to see more of the emotional story that we had built up over the last 2 hours play out. So yeah, it kind of just fell into a little bit of like MCU over the topness, where they just take things maybe a smidge too far, for the sake of, you know, the blockbuster spectacle of it all. And I think this one could have been more focused and more quiet almost.
Brad, your thoughts on the third?
Well, that's actually, I feel like that's what was interesting about the movie, because I felt like I had heard some people not complaining, but just, you know, discussing about like even like the second act, where things actually really do kind of slow down, I would say. And you can make this argument for the beginning of the movie too, where we're really trying to explore like this family dynamic. And I thought the movie was so interesting because it felt like such a broad story. Maybe not to the full degree, and I'm only saying this because of the fantastical quality of Shang-Chi, like especially when they cross over and everything. But they're you know, almost like Lord of the Rings, where there's like this epic sweeping story that you're trying to tell. I almost felt like this was almost a movie that maybe even though this was our first real look at Shang-Chi and all this world and everything else, it almost felt to me like this was a 2-part movie, like just because they had done such a big story. Like it was a big story, and I almost feel like it was too good and too big for one movie. And so I do kind of agree with Kelly, where it was like, I would have liked some of that stretched out a little bit. And I felt like they just, for better or for worse, I mean, it was great. It was beautiful to look at, but yeah, it became like almost like a whirlwind at the end, where I would have preferred it maybe to have slowed down and maybe really explored that more of a showdown. I like that it didn't necessarily follow the blueprint of like, you know, Luke versus Vader at the end, even though we love it and we were kind of like, do it. But like so I like the fact that there was something different brought to the table there, but maybe I could have maybe used a little bit of spacing. But again, that's not necessarily on anybody. That's sometimes just to do with the, you know, the length of the movie that you've got and the time you have to play with. Yeah. So for me, I still really liked it. I mean, like I said, the third act was like,
overall.
Holy crap. Like we were like, there was a lot going on, but I still really enjoyed it. I almost feel like I have to see it again in the theater just to kind of soak in that third act a little bit better.
I've been thinking about that too. Like I would like to go see it again. I think that now, like having a sort of knowing what's coming will help me be able to digest it better. And like I've already said my feelings on the third act. I'm of the I didn't hate it. I understand that this is all part of the greater story, and I thought with respect to his sister, that's sort of sequel bait. And I felt that having the flying monster fight did take away from all the emotion that you've built up with these characters. I want to talk about the post-credit scenes, the one in particular. So so we're heading into the next phase, folks. So we got Wong, we got Shang-Chi, we've got Aquafina, who I really should call her by her character's name.
Katie.
Yes,
Katie,
I've got her,
yep.
Katie. I literally, like, I've been doing that since I left the movie. I leave the movie and I'm talking to my other half, Aquafina, because it's just such a great name.
Yeah.
We
Such a
got
standout.
we got Carol Danvers with long hair again,
Mm-hmm.
and we got Bruce Banner, not Professor Hulk.
Correct.
Bruce Banner.
I
Still
gotta tell
rocking
you-
the sling. Did you notice?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
So very close after our last entry. I gotta tell you, like, I just watched that and was like, oh, there's Bruce Banner. And then not until today was I just sort of, sitting thinking about this episode, thinking about us coming and having this conversation and going, he's not Professor Hulk.
No.
Like, it
Yeah,
just
what happened? Yeah.
just today I was like, oh, so I don't know if that's going to be a broader story point or a throwaway line in an upcoming movie, but it went right over my head when I was in the theater, probably because I had just taken in a third act that had a lot of information thrown at me as well. So yeah, completely over my head that he's back in his human form.
We will likely get the explanation for why he's like that in the She-Hulk Disney Plus series.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm guessing it probably has something to do with the fact that he snapped the gauntlet and the injury and he couldn't heal. Like, if I had to theorize, like, that is why he had to go. Because in the end game, he's like, I put the brains and the brawn together. And now he's back. So
now he's
I'm
like,
looking
never
forward to
mind.
figure that out.
Yeah,
but the thing that got me the most excited, like, as you can see, I was a huge fan of the Infinity Stones and the Infinity Gauntlet in Phase 1. So the fact that we're analyzing, like, the origin of the 10 rings, and now this is like, where did these come from? And you've got this is like, why are these here? Who created them? Alongside with this, like, multiverse story that's, like, kicked off with Loki, and we've seen in Spider-Man, and it's like, I'm so excited. Like, after that, I'm like, I'm just absolutely, that type of stuff is what Marvel does that gets me to do the air punch in the theater.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And I oh my God, because we have also been now exposed to the full Eternals trailer, and we really can tell by what they did in Shang-Chi. They're really ushering in a new era, I think, and a new style without fully walking away from, like, maybe your traditional at times superhero stories. Like, we are getting into some, like, deep stuff. Like, we're talking about, like, certain storylines that, like, we've been dying for, and, like, you never thought necessarily you were going to see on screen. And there's a mystical quality to it. There's a fantastical quality to it. I think you're bringing in a whole other fan base in just based on that, and I'm into it. Like, I am into it. I mean, I brought up Lord of the Rings before, but I've always loved that fantastical quality, and I like that they're not even gonna try to shy away from it anymore. It's kind of like, nah, we're all in.
Well,
but also not, like I said,
progression, right? Like, after
Yeah.
Thanos, like, that's the logical progression.
Yeah. And, like, I've been obsessing over the third act, but to give it its credit, this is the most sort of fantasy mythological approach to any of these movies that we've seen. So that might have been just a little jarring in itself, because the Marvel formula has sort of been the Marvel formula. Like, I almost wonder if they didn't go that route, if we'd all be sitting here saying, oh, it's just another origin story.
Correct.
Right. So, I mean, I'll give it some credit in that sense. And I think that's what's been interesting about everything that's come out since Endgame is we're really diving into different styles and different genres more than before, which is, what Kevin Feige's kind of promised of this next phase. So yeah, going into this movie, to me, it was going to be sort of a partner piece in terms of its tonality to Black Panther. And then it just really kind of shifted in the end to that mythological approach, which
I thought the same.
Yeah.
Brad, you got my gears turning here with the bringing up of the Eternals and the fact that these rings are, like, sort of an ancient power. And, like, I'm really excited to see, like, where this sort of ancient power and world of the Eternals intersects with Kang the Conqueror and the multiverse.
I'm so excited.
Right? Because
I'm so
that's
excited.
those seem to be the two big storylines here. It's like you've got
Yeah.
which Spider-Man is going to build off of with the multiverse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but then you have this like super fantastical element with the Eternals. And so I think that's the direction we're headed in. I'm absolutely stoked. I love the film. I give it a thumbs up.
I give it a huge thumbs up too. I thought it was great. Like I said, like exactly what we're doing now. This is what we do after when we see movies. Like we pick out the best stuff, we pick out the stuff maybe we don't like, but we come to a consensus. For me, the consensus was that's a theater movie. That is like you got like hell yeah, like
Have your
hell yeah,
popcorn.
welcome back. Talkin' pop, baby.
Talkin'
like let's go.
Kelly,
But yeah,
final
no,
thoughts. Kelly, final thoughts.
Yeah, no, definitely worth going to the theater to see it. A very strong entry into a wonderful universe of movies that we've been enjoying for many, many years now. I think, yeah, it's just kind of adjusting your expectations that ending is going to be a little different than what we've seen. And you can either, take it or leave it. I think we're all kind of landing somewhere in the middle. But it'll be interesting to see how this character moves forward, because it looks like he's got a future based on the post-credit scene. Like, this character is not going away. We're going to see him again. We're going to see his sister again. So yeah, and also I speaking just of Simu Liu, I'm like, I watched him on Kim's Convenience, shout out CBC. Knew from the minute that guy, came on the screen, he was a star. Like, so also just really excited that they've got this young guy in there who's going to be in there for probably the long haul.
Oh yeah, he's
which is what we,
Bruce
yeah,
Banner
like
said it.
he's
welcome,
yeah,
welcome to the, what did he say? He says, welcome to the, it's like to the crazy or something like that.
Yeah,
welcome
to the team.
Welcome to the circus or something.
Welcome,
doesn't he say?
yes.
Yeah.
He's basically like, oh, you're in it now, kid. And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
So I think that's going to do it for us. I think that's going to do it for us this week, guys. If you like what you see, hit that like and subscribe button below. If you want to find out more, head on over to our Instagram at Talkin' Pop. Leave a review if you can. It just helps us in the algorithm, and we're trying to build this thing and get going here. Once again, I want to thank everyone who took the time to click on our video and check us out. It really means a lot, and we're here to stay, and we're going to have fun doing this. So thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.